Base sa balitang kumakalat, pinalaan si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos ng mismong Defense Ministry ng China sa ginawang panunutok ng Philippine Navy ng baril sa mismong PLA ng China. Ayon sa Chinese Defense Minister, tinutukan daw sila ng baril. Meron na daw sila ditong pruweba. Nakunan daw kasi nanunutok sa China ng mga Pilipino ng baril. Pero totoo nga kaya itong bintang nila sa bidyong inilabas kasi ng China? Makikita dito mismo sa video na dinidepensa lang ng mga Pilipinong BAB4RILIN. Alam na kasi ng China nang tututukan sila dyan ng baril basta lumapit ka nang di nagpapaalam sa kahit kaninong barkong panggera. Kaya China, wag nyo kaming babaliktarin kaming nanunutok sa inyo ng baril. Kayo tong pumapasok sa Ayungin Shoal, kayong trespasser China.
3. 确有个别国家在外部势力的煽动下毁弃双边的约定，违背自身的承诺，有预谋的挑起事端，制造假象，误导视听，甚至不顾地区国家的整体利益，违反东盟宪章精神，配合外部势力在本地区部署中程导弹，严重破坏了地区的安全稳定。这样的做法终将会引火烧身。对此呢，国际社会的眼睛是雪亮的。中方对侵权挑衅行政保持了足够的克制，但这也是有限度。
Pero babala ni Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, hindi maiiwasang makipaggera ang Amerika, Pilipinas sa China. Unang-una, hindi sila marunong sumunod ayon kay Secretary Lloyd Austin, kaya maiging maghanda na lang din tayo sa gera.
The harassment that the Philippines has faced is dangerous, pure and simple, and we all share an interest in ensuring that the South China Sea remains open and free. The United States can be secure only if Asia is secure. And that's why the United States has long maintained our presence in this region. War or a fight with China is neither imminent, in my view, unavoidable. So leaders of great power nations need to continue to work together to ensure that we're doing things to reduce the opportunities for miscalculation and misunderstandings. And as long as we're talking, we're able to identify those issues that are troublesome, and that we want to make sure that that we in place guardrails to ensure that there are no misperceptions and no miscalculations, and incidents can spiral out of control in a region. But you can only do that kind of thing if you are talking.
Kaya panawagan ni Admiral Ronnie Hilgaban sa lahat ng Coast Guard, wag daw sanang gamitin ng water cannon para makapanakit. Gamitin daw ito sa apoy para makapanagip buhay. Pero ang China hindi niya nabanggit na sila tinutukoy niyang magbagong buhay.
Use water cannons against fellow Coast Guards, well, obviously it doesn't look good. So I hope that stops. Water cannons was as more appropriately called the fire monitors are not meant to light up fire. They are there to save lives and properties from fire, or simply to put out fire, never to hose down the weaker ones to pieces to start the fire. We're not very comfortable with that.
Pero ang China, imbis magpakumbaba, ginamit pa nila ang pagkakataong ito para sila din makapagsumbong na sila din daw ay binobomba. Japan Coast Guard daw sa kanila unang nang bomba ng tubig. Paano di kayo bobombahin? Kayo tong mahilig mang bomba.
Japanese Coast Guard is the first one who used water cannon towards Chinese fishing boat and fishermen. And I have maybe everyone, you can find hundreds of pictures in internet from the 1990s to 2010s.
Pero ayon kay Renato De Castro, security analyst ng Pilipinas, pinuri niya ang speech ng Pangulo. Nanindigan daw itong lalaban talaga siya sa China. Ngayon alam na ng mga Chinese papalag talaga tayo. Alam nyong di kami uurong sa gera.
Well, it basically is sending a signal to the international community that we would like to play a very active role in the international affairs, that we, the Philippines, already consider our country not anymore as a small power, but a middle power but this would have to be backed by what we call the comprehensive capabilities, military capabilities, the abilities for us to influence international public opinion, and more significantly, economic development. So it is in a way sending a message to the world: watch out, the Philippines will be a very active middle power when it comes to those issues. Remember, also in his speech, he mentioned the fact that some countries simply would like to look at what's happening in the region as great power dynamics, or the fact that everything would have to be explained in terms of the US-China strategic competition. The president asserts the agency of the Philippines, that whatever action we take is, of course, is based on our national interests, and this will, in pursuing our national interests, we also have to strengthen our economy, we have to strengthen our national cohesion, we have to strengthen our military capability, and more significantly, he emphasized the fact that the Philippines is an archipelagic state. The defense of our territorial waters is something very important, and this will be the focal point of our grand strategy in the 21st century. Well, extending the fact that we are ready to defend what we believe is ours, it's also a message to the Filipino nation that we have a president who is, of course, willing to basically focus all his attention in ensuring that every Filipino would have, of course, enjoy the richness and the richness and the resources of our inclusive economic zone. Of course, this is the very essence of what we call the comprehensive archipelagic defense concept, which, of course, the president is also mentioned in the latter part of the speech. But this is a point mentioned by the president. At the start of his speech, he basically talked about the evolution of the Philippines as archipelagic nation. Then the fact this archipelagic nation is already a middle power, and expect this middle power to play a very important role, primarily because of what's happening in our maritime domain, and more significantly, what's happening in the Indo-Pacific region. Well, the Chinese foreign ministry already made a statement, right?
Yeah.
It accuses the Philippines, without mentioning the Philippines, of hyping up the South China Sea issue. And of course, using international law and the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea to weaponize its efforts, of course, to hype the South China Sea issue. So we're already getting the reaction from China.
Yeah.
And I think this is the primary purpose of the president. But although we have to give credit for the president for his sophistication and subtlety, never in his speech did he mention China.
Yeah.
Right? But everyone in the room, and of course the international audience, is aware of the fact that he's referring to that elephant in the room, which everyone knows happened to be China, or I would say the dragon in the room. And now we're, of course, having the reaction from China, from the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Well, the statement is primarily directed to the ASEAN countries and, of course, to our people. That it is a nuanced approach regarding the strategic competition. The majority of the ASEAN member states do not want to get involved in the strategic competition. They try to basically, want to remove themselves from this strategic competition. In his speech, the president basically emphasized the fact that the strategic competition is here. It's happening with our mid. It's forcing countries to basically make choices. But on the other hand, he basically states we have to look at the strategic competition head on. So we have to, in a way, we could have to look at it both as a challenge and also, in a way, an opportunity. So his actions, like, for example, stating the importance of our alliance with the United States, the importance of the security partnerships we have with Japan, Australia, and of course, India. And of course, his mention of the trilateral summit among the Philippines, Japan, and of course, the United States. In a way, it's also telling us that we have to accept the strategic competition between China and the United States as given, and we will also have to use it as an opportunity to basically enhance our interest. Our interest in maintaining, of course, asserting our maritime entitlement in the South China Sea, and more significantly, a point raised by the president. The Philippines is part of the rules-based international order, and it's not in our interest to see this rules-based international order being revised or changed. Well, the best course of action, of course, early on in his term, President Marcos emphasized the need of a balanced relation between China and the United States. That is, do you remember his second State of the Nation address? He said, I would like to have a good economic relations with China, but at the same time, one that's balanced with our alliance with the United States. So I think his speech, in a way, is also a reiteration of his approach that, it is a given that you have the U.S.-China strategic competition, but as much as possible, if we have if it's an optimum choice on our part, we don't want to make a choice. Rather, we have to use the strategic competition to our advantage. Well, I will mention a issue that he mentioned, and I think this again would tickle the raw nerves of China. And we have to credit the president for his courage regarding this. When he mentioned Taiwan, the Taiwan Straits. Of course, from the Chinese perspective, this is an internal matter. You know, no countries have the right to basically talk about the Taiwan Strait issue because, again, from the position of China, Taiwan is simply a province of China. And whatever China would do against Taiwan is an internal matter. The president mentioned Taiwan and emphasized the importance of stability in the Taiwan Strait, emphasizing the fact that although we have a one China policy, it is in the interest of the Philippines that peace and stability is, of course, maintained in the Taiwan Strait. And interestingly, he also made a very subtle, pointed criticism of China in that part of his speech. When he mentioned countries involved in this issue have to exercise restraint. We have to understand this. Just last week, China launched a massive military exercises around Taiwan. So this is a very subtle, pointed criticism of Chinese action when it comes to the Taiwan issue.
And it's a very delicate matter because we still do believe in the one China policy, Professor. But if you'd let me get in one more question
Yes.
before I let you go.
Let me emphasize this point.
Go ahead.
Although we adhere to the one China policy, we have interest in the peace and stability of Taiwan. And the president mentioned it. Number one, it's not only the stability there, but the fact that we have 200,000 Filipinos working in Taiwan. What will ever happen to cross-strait relations would affect our vital interest. That is 200,000 Filipino workers in Taiwan. Well, I will put the period, let's say, at the second decade of the 21st century, where, of course, this is a term that President Marcos have mentioned several times, geopolitics. When, of course, you have geopolitical dynamics being generated by, of course, China's expansive claim in the South China Sea, which began around 2012. When, of course, China took control of the Scarborough Shoal. So the late President Benigno Aquino III did not have that opportunity. Then, of course, the former president who simply appeased China could not be given that opportunity. We have a president here who started with a very dynamic effort to find the balance between China and the United States, but now has basically taken an active stance in asserting our, of course, maritime interests in the South China Sea, being, of course, a very important player in the Indo-Pacific geopolitics, and, of course, adopting a grand strategy for the Philippines in the 21st century, making that speech in the Shangri-La Dialogue. We have to credit the Philippines for his geostrategic, geopolitical insights and ability, of course, to ensure that the Philippines will play a very active role in the Indo-Pacific region.
Ngayon, ikaw, bilang Pilipino, ano ang masasabi mo at reaksyon sa balitang ito? Mag-iwan ka ng komento sa ibaba at atin pong babasahin isa-isa.